Hello. How's it going? Thank you for coming to the talk. This is Design No Harm, um, as expected. I think this is a really important topic because I think there's a lot of impact to be had in using games for improving mental health, but these are some of the most vulnerable populations with some of the most kind of tight interests and tolerances. So there's a lot that can go wrong as well, and I'm going to be talking about that and kind of what to do right and wrong. So this is me. There I am. You can look at me the way you look at me, so you're welcome, I guess. My company is Applied Games Unlimited. It exists at the kind of intersection of playful UX, behavioral design, and game design. I was the lead game designer at Sidekick Health, which is a digital therapeutic in Iceland. I've done cognitive remediation games at Click Therapeutics. We're here in New York, designing brain games at Northeastern University, where I also teach, and other stuff as well. These are some of my other past clients. Some stuff in health, some stuff outside of health, government, education, so a broad swath, just to show you kind of my background. All right, so I want you to picture in your mind right now, what is the very first app that comes to mind when you hear the word gamification, okay? I know a lot of people don't even like the word gamification. I use it because my clients know it and use it, but you don't have to call it that. I call it applied games usually, but okay, you probably have it in your head by now. If it is Duolingo, you have something in common with every single one of my clients. And I mean, with good reason. It's probably the most famous one, and it's very effective, very engaging. But we end up in situations where I'll sit down with a client, and they are immediately talking about mechanisms for engagement that they learned in Duolingo, regardless of the fact that their users are people with severe depression, not language learners. But of course, like, there's good reason to be looking at Duolingo. Gamification can backfire and have all these problems, but the most, like, what is the best medicine? Well, it's the one that people will actually use. And if you look at these statistics from Navic, you can see that self-help apps typically have 3 to 5% retention after 60 days, and Duolingo has like 400% that. So that's not nothing. It's a really important thing. And adherence and retention are two of the most important things when it comes to digital therapies, any therapy, right? People even taking pills, they'll do it for the first few weeks, and then after they see their doctor, it drops off. So retention is the name of the game when it comes to a therapy. That works. So I'm going to quick overview of some of these gamification and BSI frameworks. I'm not having them up here to call them out. In fact, I use them. I like them. Different contexts, different ones are appropriate. Octalysis is a famous one with different motivational styles. Hexad is about player types. I use them both. For a behavioral framework, I really like the FOG model. Basically, it states that if you want to do something, you will do it when prompted if you can. It seems very straightforward, but it kind of describes all of human behavior. And if you can design with it, then you can help people do the things that they want to be doing. And then there's like points, badges, leaderboards. They're always not like the most fun thing, but again, I have used them. People know them. There's places for them, but not always in clinical populations. We'll talk about it. But like, the lesson isn't that these are the frameworks and they work and apply them. It is that you have to translate them to a clinical setting, because if you don't, you can actually harm your users by inducing anxiety, alienating them from your product, causing them to spiral, or whatever. And these lessons aren't imaginary. They come from my real work with people with schizophrenia, addiction, so on and so forth. Okay, so quick overview of kind of what I've learned. Does not work. It's important to know this stuff before you get into it. So one is social features. And at Sidekick, we were talking about doing social features to make people more responsible to each other and so on. But there was a feeling I had in the back of my head that maybe this would be an issue, that people might not want to engage this way. So we surveyed around 100 people. about what would pull them into the app and what would motivate them. And social was dead last. And this is, so like, you have people, they might want to brag on social media that they bought a car or got accepted to college or something. But like even sharing positive news about your health is more sensitive. And if your app is exposing people socially, they might be pushed away from it. So not that you can never use this. People like reading each other's stories of success, and especially in closed communities. But you need to be careful with it. All right, so achievements. They're everywhere. They're in every gamified app. They're easy to do. People know them. People expect them. And the best case scenario is they will be a road sign for what users should be doing to get value out of your app, whatever that is. And they see it, they can work for it, and they can achieve it. However, when you have a population that might be suffering from depression, or maybe they're an oncology patient, like some of my users at Sidekick Health, they just might not have the energy and the physical ability to do what you're asking them to do. And having these achievements that they can't reach will make them feel bad about themselves and might do more harm than good. So you might be thinking, okay, well, I know what to do then. I will make the achievements very easy to get. And we'll be constantly patting them on the back. Yes, you did this, good job. Winner, hell yeah. But a person in this situation might feel patronized. Like, well, you're congratulating me for basically nothing. Or you might have like a 10-module, educational, like a psych educational thing for them to do. And like giving an award for just doing what the app asked them to do can be like uncomfortable. Like, this is just the experience. Why am I getting an award for going through the motions? So you have to avoid that stuff. And instead, I use what's called the WOW framework, which I developed, and that stands for work. That what you're asking them to do is meaningful in terms of its energy output, that they feel ownership, that's the O, that it's tied to their identity, it's not a meaningless pat on the back, and want. They actually desire these things in the first place. And I find that if you can adjust these three things for the right population, that you can kind of split the difference in the middle and have something that's motivating and makes the user feel good about themselves and shows them what they should be doing without overwhelming them or patronizing them. So a person suffering from a chronic illness or mental health often feels a lack of agency. They're doing what their doctor tells them to do, they're doing what their nurse tells them to do, they're doing what their family tells them to do, and their choices start to get limited and narrowed. And I feel that games are all about choice, what you can do for yourself. They're self-directed, they're self-motivated. So if your gamified system is opaque and they don't understand how they're achieving things, they're being surprised with random rewards, they don't see the direct path to the end of the tunnel, it can exacerbate that feeling of lack of agency, and they can feel like an object in the system instead of an actor on the system. And I think the best gamified systems put people in the driver's seat so that they can choose what they want to do to get benefit and find value on their own. So this one is maybe a little esoteric, but it was an important lesson. So most games for health are about setting goals in some way. A good example is like a step counter. And if a person is recovering from an illness or if they have trouble getting out of bed in the morning, walking is a good thing for mental health, sure. And we found at Sidekick that when you adjust goals up, which is a good thing to do, right? You did 1,000 steps, can you do 1,200, right? That people will meet that challenge, but then something happens, like they'll go on vacation and take 9,000 steps that day, or like 9 kilometers or whatever, and then it shoots way up, and then their goal is no longer attainable to them because it's not reasonable to expect them to keep doing that when they get home from their vacation. And this is just an example, right? You can set all kinds of goals. This is just a clear one to explain. But we found that if you can absorb those outliers and keep them on a steady growth path instead, that this is really beneficial. And the last concern in this section that I want to talk about is about user skill level, user cognitive level. So when I was designing for Click Therapeutics, we were doing games for cognitive remediation for people with schizophrenia. So basically, people with schizophrenia lose certain skills, cognitive skills, of like planning and logic and ordering, stuff like that. And those skills do not come back even after they've received treatment and their other symptoms have gone away. So in order to strengthen those, you have to train them. But training them is difficult and tedious. And there are laboratory training modules that do that. But they're not very fun and people don't stick to them. So we were basically designing puzzles that would help train them based on like gold standard science. So you might think, okay, well, we'll design these for schizophrenic people. Well, what are they like? Well, you have to talk to them and you have to show them what you're making. And when you do, or at least we found that the difference between the highest functioning people and the lowest functioning people is extremely wide. So we would have people that have moderate symptoms and they blast through the puzzles and they find the hardest one kind of easy. But then you have a different person that's going to be in the same cohort and they get to the tutorial level that's supposed to teach the rules and they're like, how do I do this? I don't understand the connection because they have that lack those cognitive strengths that I was talking about before, right? And it's exactly for them, right? So they can get better at those things. So how do you make a game that is going to be right for both of those people? And for us, the solution was basically creating like a ton of content. So we had to create tons of levels at every difficulty spike so that we could graduate users up automatically when they were doing it well, like hitting like 80%. And when they did that, they would rise up. But that means that that user A in this picture can rapidly shoot up to the top and stay there, while user B can slowly work their way up. And no matter where they level off, there'll be enough content for them. Okay, so some other things that might work for you if you're designing these kinds of things. So this is from a paper that I wrote for UbiComp last year and presented in Finland. You have these frameworks, the standard ones, translate them to your population. And when you do this, you're considering their safety, right? Are you providing mechanisms that will lift them up and not harm them? Their privacy? Is anything exposing them in ways that they might not want? Do they have control over their data? Do they have control over who sees and hears them? And avoiding harmful game states, like ones that might make them anxious. One thing that we heard back from users in tests were anything that showed like a negative outcome to a character was like genuinely distressing to them, like seeing like a little animal like fall over or whatever, like just risks upsetting them and when they're already feeling bad, so we avoid anything like that. And that moves to these more effective clinical gamification. So we have WOW, which I already talked about, it's there in the middle. If I didn't get into too much detail on this, but we can talk about it later if you want. There is the ethic framework, which we'll talk about in a minute, that's on ethical gamification that I've previously presented. And then there's making sure that you're using evidence-based frameworks like those laboratory modules that I was talking about for schizophrenic patients, using like understanding the fog model, right? It has evidence behind it. It's not just an idea. It's been proven in different contexts, as opposed to something like procedural rhetoric, which you might have heard of, which has no evidence behind it. It's just a nice sounding idea, but people end up putting it into games because it's well reasoned and the papers about it, right? So like finding where the evidence is of impact and behavior change and applying that. Okay, so I'll talk about the ethic framework. So if you've ever developed a framework and tried to show it to people, you will know how thrilled I was when I realized that the points in it already spelt ethic. I think the only thing I had to do was change the H. It was complete, and now it's holistic, which, okay, it's a little awkward, but it spells the word. So basically, ethical gamification is empowering. The user can find the value in the system and actually seek it out and do it. They know what they want, they see how to get it, and they can do it. They're deriving the value. Second is transparent. They understand how it's working. They understand the path they're going through. If it's monetized, they understand how it's monetized and why they're being shown certain things. Holistic, that's the one I had to change. That if they have paid for something, that they get it all. There's no unnecessary gatekeeping. There's not, the value isn't hidden behind a second fee. It doesn't disappear like a month later. Then there's intrinsically motivating, that they are pursuing genuine interest and value. They're doing things because they want to, not because they're afraid that they will lose their streak, or afraid that their plant will die if they don't, or afraid that they will be judged by peers if they don't. That everything that they're doing is for themselves. And then the last is customizable, which sounds like, oh, of course everybody likes customization because it's personalized to them, but it's more than that, because if there is a feature that is alienating, for instance, like a leaderboard that is asking them to compete, or social sharing, they should be able to opt out of anything like that and customize an experience that is comfortable for them, not just pleasurable to them. So I want to call this out, and I have Candy Crush up here, not because I don't like Candy Crush, but because I used to actually work for people from King, the makers of Candy Crush. And at first, we were misunderstanding each other. So in tech, people say, like, we're going to move fast and break things. And in games, things are, especially in well-funded companies, everything is A/B tested, like, up the ass, right? They ship features at lightning speed, and anything that doesn't work is immediately thrown out, and you move on to the next thing. And that's fine if a miss means lower ROI for the month. But if a miss means someone with depression is going to spiral, and the stakes are not a few dollars, but people's actual, like, health and well-being, you can't take risks with them like that, which is tough because game design is all about iteration. But what I found works in these contexts is to spend more time in pre-production, understanding the frameworks that you're going to apply, and working with small selections of people and pilots, asking the right questions, and then like iterating once you have like a solid understanding of what you're doing. Okay, so implementing this, bringing it all together. I think of this in 3 phases. The first phase is research. So understand what you're designing around. So I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a scientist. I'm a game designer. But I have kind of taught myself the ability to understand all of these topics and actually read and dive into the research. So I read the actual papers, whether they're publications in scientific publications, whether they are white papers or whatever they happen to be, so that I can understand them and design around them and take inspiration from them and what works. This also allows me to interface with subject matter experts, the actual doctors and psychologists who are the experts on my team. I learned to speak their language so that we can work together and trust each other as we make things. And I trust their expertise and they trust my expertise. And then the last is knowing what has worked in the past and what has not worked in the past. So this involves finding previous solutions that were attempted. Again, you might find them in papers, or you might actually be able to find and play them and see how they work. And searching for that data so you know you're not doing repeating a mistake from the past. Second is engagement. Yes, this means talking to users. It's about user engagement and co-design. And okay, yes, it sounds very obvious if you're designing something for somebody that you should talk to them. But like very recently, I was with a client developing games for older adults with memory issues to discover that they had, because they were on a tight schedule, they had not scheduled these types of conversations with them. And they were basing their work on a lot of assumptions, which unfortunately is actually very common. So you need to talk to them. You talk to them so you can understand their lived experience. And like, even if I was designing for a peer, like, I don't have their exact lived experience, so I need to talk to them. Talking to somebody who is living in poverty with severe mental health in another part of the country or the world, they're a different race, they're younger than me, like, they're a different gender, different sexual identity, all of these things. Like, I can't make any assumptions about them. I need to understand them. And to do that, I need to do that research and engagement and hear it directly from them because they're the expert in their own life. And then, so that's UX research, which any developer has on their team. But then you also need to understand how they play, because if you don't, you might develop mechanics that you like but they don't, things that alienate them, things that are beyond their tolerance, that don't take their illness seriously, and then they will drop and not be engaged, and you've defeated the purpose. And then last is design. So again, use those proven frameworks as I discussed. You need to test with real users, so the people that actually have the conditions that you're designing for, not just, you might have easy access to undergrads. If you're a researcher, you might have your family, your sister-in-law, like whoever is testing this for you, your colleagues, but these are not the actual users. You need to test with them early and often. You're iterating with them. And then you need to ask those ethic-based questions. So not just, was this fun? Did you understand it? Could you do what you were trying to do, right? That you might ask a player in any game that you're developing, but was there anything in this that made you feel uncomfortable or anxious? Is there anything that you wish you could opt out of? Is there any part of this that you would want to change, or that seems to misunderstand you? Things like that. You don't know if you don't ask, and play testers want to please you, so they won't volunteer these things. So you need to make them comfortable to tell these things to you, and that's an important part of your job. So yeah, that's it. You put it all together. This is just a picture from Sidekick, where I worked, where we did this stuff for a lot of people. And I'll leave you with this final thought, that the most powerful engagement doesn't come from psychological manipulation, but from genuine value creation. And that's what we're doing for our users. I think we might have time for a question, but I'll leave my information up as well. So if you want to grab that, I write on Medium about this stuff all the time. There's my email, and there I am. Thank you.
Hey, that was great. Thank you. Something I found really interesting was your emphasis on intrinsic motivation and kind of comparing that to, the Duolingo model of creating artificial motivation. What I'm curious about with this population is that something you expect the players to come with, or is that something that can seek to be like engendered in a player?
So that's a really good question, and motivation is really important, and it's actually the hardest thing to increase in someone. Much easier to lower the barriers to entry than to increase somebody's motivation. But I think the lucky thing is when somebody is coming to an app that's a therapy, generally they're very motivated to use it because they want to get better, right? And like, that's the intrinsic motivation. Like, I want to strengthen myself mentally. I want to be healthier, right? So you already have them, and then you just don't want to lose them, and you want to take away the things that make it hard for them to do what they want to do. And I think when we talk about extrinsic motivation, sometimes a reward can help, but what I'm really worried about is these manipulative tactics that use anxiety to stop them from churning, right? So yeah. Great. Please find me out there, yeah.